Hello, this is Louis at Global Marine Networks, introducing a new product called the RedPort Wi-Fi Extender. The RedPort Wi-Fi Extender is a product that's designed to extend or amplify a marina Wi-Fi signal in your boat. So I am sure that many of you have experienced frustration using Wi-Fi connectivity on your vessel. Typically you would come into a marina, arrange for Wi-Fi connectivity, try to use it, and then either not be able to connect to the Wi-Fi marina hotspot, or once connected, find that it's very, very slow and not practical to use. So this particular product is designed to address that issue by making Wi-Fi more accessible to the computers and the mobile devices that you have on your vessel. So how does it do that? Well, let's discuss a little bit what the issues might be when dealing with Wi-Fi. So first of all, Wi-Fi is a radio transmission, and it's point-to-point. So you have a transmitter and a receiver that have to be within line of sight of each other in order to be able to communicate. So when you're sitting inside of your vessel, the Wi-Fi antennas on your devices cannot necessarily or are unable to, or are able with difficulty to view or see signal from a remote device. This is because you have occlusions, you might have a building, you might have other different obstacles in the way which prevent you from accessing that signal. In the extreme case, you have the curvature of the earth, which might not, which would prevent the signal from actually reaching your antenna. So positioning your antenna is a very important thing in order to receive Wi-Fi. Additionally, you have signal reception as well as signal transmission power. So the transmitters need to be able to transmit with enough power to penetrate the atmosphere and the obstacles between you and the remote station. And the receiving antenna needs to be sensitive enough to receive the signal. So when you look at a situation where you are in a marina, in the smaller marinas, typically they're using household routers which have very little power and small antennas and are not themselves great radio transmitters. They're designed for providing Wi-Fi connectivity in the house and not over the larger range that you might see when trying to broadcast over an entire marina. So while sitting in your boat, the signal reception that you're receiving from those transmitters is quite weak, and you may not be able to detect it, or your devices may not be able to detect it at all. Alternately, your devices themselves have weak transmitters. If you take a look at, for example, a laptop or a mobile device, these devices have antennas which are designed for ergonomics and transmit with low power. So they have poor reception capability. The antennas themselves are not very sensitive. And when they're transmitting, they transmit with low power, usually between 20 and 50 milliwatts. They do that to conserve battery power and also to protect your brain from being irradiated by microwaves when you're actually using the particular devices. So when using these devices, the marina Wi-Fi themselves, hotspots themselves can't hear you, and you can't hear them. So those factors affect the quality of the signal that you're able to receive and the quality of the transmissions that you're able to emit, and consequently the speed at which you can connect and transmit data over your Wi-Fi connected. Add that with the fact that there may be hundreds of people that are using a limited resource. So even if you're able to connect to the marina Wi-Fi and you have good strong signal, that Wi-Fi signal is a limited resource, and consequently the amount of data you're able to transfer is reduced because of the contention of all these other people trying to do data over that limited bandwidth. So you have signal transmission issues, you have signal reception issues, and you have contention issues which make it difficult to do Wi-Fi in a marina. So this particular product, the RedPort Wi-Fi Extender, is designed specifically to address those issues. If you notice, it is a marine waterproof enclosure designed to be installed outside. So this allows the unit to have line of sight connectivity to the remote station. So whereas with using a mobile device, you might be down below, when using the extender would be mounted on the top of a mast, In my boat, for example, it's on the top of the pilot house, about 12 feet above the water. It could be on the push pit, but basically outside with good line of sight view to the marina transmitter. The unit itself has a very big and sensitive antenna, so it can receive weak signals that are emitted by the Wi-Fi transmitters on shore, and it transmits with the maximum allowed power by the FCC, which is an effective power of 4 watts. So you're transmitting with an effective power of 4 watts with this transmitter versus 20 to 50 milliwatts with this device, or something in the 100 of milliwatts in the case of a laptop. So that in itself makes that signal, that Wi-Fi signal, more readily available to you. Additionally, this device is designed to interface with our RedPort Optimizer, which is a device which is designed for optimizing data transmissions over narrowband satellite links. This means that when you have the Wi-Fi extender connected to the optimizer, you can benefit from the same technology that makes satellite transmissions work faster, better, and more reliably. So when connected to a Wi-Fi that has many, many users and having limited bandwidth because of the contention, you can transmit much less data using our compression and our optimization with greater success, enabling you to browse the internet and do email when others may not. So how does this work? The Wi-Fi extender uses a Cat5 Ethernet cable to connect to the optimizer. It comes with a standard of 10 meters worth of cable. The cable can be really of any length, up to about 100 meters long. It's a standard Cat5 cable with standard Cat5 connectors. So it's easy to run. You can actually cut the end off, run the wire through your vessel, and then use an inexpensive RJ45 crimper that you can get at Home Depot or any hardware store to crimp on a new end to the extender. The extender plugs into the back of the optimizer in the LAN port and is powered by 12 volts. The unit comes with a 12-volt power supply, a little wall wart that is 110 volts to 12 volts, or you can just wire this directly into the house supply for your vessel to provide it power. Once it's all connected, the optimizer provides a Wi-Fi hotspot for your vessel. So your mobile devices and your computers and any other Wi-Fi device on your vessel that you want to have connectivity to the internet would use this hotspot to connect to. The optimizer would then transmit your data requests and internet data through the Ethernet cable to the extender, and the extender would then transmit that to the access point at the marina. So the extender amplifies the signal, sends them through the cable to the optimizer. The optimizer then broadcasts a local hotspot, which then allows you to connect your devices locally on your vessel. So your devices do Wi-Fi connectivity to the optimizer does Wi-Fi connectivity to the remote device. So pretty easy to set up and pretty easy to configure. So in a few minutes, and we'll see next how it is that we actually configure the optimizer and connect to a hotspot and get it configured to work with our devices. So until a few minutes from now, we'll see you.
New RedPort Wi-Fi extender. So in my previous video, we had demonstrated the physical device and how do you connect it, and the pluses and minuses of using the extender to provide Wi-Fi connectivity inside your vessel. And now we're going to show you how the user interface works and how to actually make that happen. So, as stated in my previous video, we Wi-Fi connect to the optimizer. I have my computer here, and we do that by going, this is a Mac, on Windows PC would be very similar. On this particular optimizer has an SSID of WXA11293F5. Of course, you could change that. But I just select it and then Wi-Fi connect to it. Once I'm Wi-Fi connected to the optimizer, I need to tell it that I want to use the extender to connect to a marina Wi-Fi. So the first thing I do is I actually open up a browser and connect to the optimizer, and I do this by entering the IP address 192.168.10.1 as described in the quick start guide that comes with the optimizer. I then log in. The default username is admin with a password of webxaccess, again defined in the quick start guide that comes with your optimizer. And once we've entered that username and that password, we get to the home page on the optimizer. And we see here a section called Wi-Fi extender setup. Now, the Wi-Fi extender setup only shows up if the Wi-Fi extender is plugged into the LAN port of the optimizer. If the extender is powered off or if it's disconnected from the optimizer, of course, that section will not show up because the optimizer itself will not have connectivity to the extender itself. So there are 3 steps involved in getting connected to the internet through the Wi-Fi extender. The first one involves connecting to the external Wi-Fi hotspot. The second one then is to enable data to be transferred to it, and the third one is to manage the firewall. So let's go ahead and address the first issue. So the first thing we want to do is we want to tell the extender that we want to connect to the Wi-Fi access point that might be at a marina. Of course, those access points are going to change from location to location, and so you need to know the SSID or the name of the hotspot, and you also need to know the security password for that, which you would receive from the marina management. So I hit the connect button, and once I do that, that transfers me to a page that actually resides on the Wi-Fi extender, and we see here that the extender is currently disabled or not associated, and so we'll want to scan to see what SSIDs are available to us. And so I hit the scan button, and in a minute you'll see basically all the different Wi-Fi hotspots that we have here at the GMN office, and we get to select one. And so you'll notice that the signal strength is quite strong on most of these. GMN is the primary hotspot for the office, and I want to connect to that, and so I'll just say join. As soon as I do that, it takes me to a screen that allows me to enter the secret code or the password for the network. So I go ahead and enter that, and then I hit submit. Once I hit submit, I come to another page which basically gives me the signal strength and everything else, and allows me to actually change the wireless security. So if I made a mistake entering the password, I can correct it here. And then I hit the save and apply. Once I hit the save and apply, that will tell the extender to connect to that particular Wi-Fi hotspot. And you'll see in a minute here that as soon as I do that, the signal strength goes to 100%. So you'll notice that the signal strength is 100%, and it gives me the information, the signal quality, and the speed at which I'm transmitting over that particular connection. Now, had I entered the Wi-Fi access ID or the password incorrectly, then what would happen here is your signal would bump up between some high value and 0 once a second, which tells you that the device is unable to connect and maintain strong signal. If that were the case, then you would go here to wireless security, you would change the password, and you would hit save and apply. So we're now connected. The Wi-Fi extender is now connected, and we're ready for use. So next what we do is we hit the home button to get us back to the home screen. So here's a home screen. And we now need to tell the optimizer that it needs to route traffic. So remember, the optimizer may be connected to a number of different devices. You may have a fleet broadband or an Iridium Pilot or a VSAT connected to the WAN port of the optimizer. You may have a 9555, 9575, or an iSat phone or a Thuraya phone plugged into the USB port. And so the optimizer doesn't know which device you want to use, so you have to tell it. And the way you do that is by pushing the Enable Wi-Fi extender. As soon as you push that particular button, we need to log back in since my session timed out. As soon as I push that button, you will notice that the polarity changes, and now it says Disable Wi-Fi Extender. Whereas before it said Enable Wi-Fi Extender, now it says Disable Wi-Fi Extender. So if I hit the Disable Wi-Fi Extender, I go back to using my satellite devices. In the case of a fleet broadband or an Iridium Pilot, all the traffic would be routed to it. In the case of a USB device, it would be routed to it once I did my Xgate session. And by pushing that button again, I now transmit the traffic over the Wi-Fi extender. So I can open up a browser now, or actually bring up Xgate and browse the internet using XWeb, for example. Now the next step has to do with the firewall. Now note that by default, the firewall is enabled. This means that all of the traffic on your computer is blocked from the internet. So for example, iCloud is not going to sync up with your iPhone. Dropbox is not going to sync up with your devices either. Windows updates aren't going to happen. Adobe updates aren't going to happen. Basically, the firewall is blocking all the traffic between the computer and the internet. Now, in a crowded Wi-Fi environment, this is a really good thing because the amount of bandwidth that you have available to you is very limited, and so you don't want to be syncing the cloud information, your iTunes music, for example, over the Wi-Fi link when it's so slow that it can't be used. So you want to protect yourself by blocking the firewall. When the firewall is on, the only traffic that is allowed is Xgate and XWeb. So you get web compression at 3 to 5x performance improvement over other Wi-Fi compression, of non-compressed, and you can do email. So you can browse the internet and you can do email. All the other traffic is blocked. And so in the case where you have contention, you can use Xgate and XWeb, which are designed for narrowband satellite devices, to optimize the performance of your link and do things or get things done that other people won't get. Now, while I'm here on the subject, let me just bring up Xgate very quickly and show you a trick. For those of you using Xgate over a USB-based device, if you were to hit Start now in Xgate, what would happen is the optimizer would go ahead and switch you over to the USB and do the data transfer over the USB. Now, of course, you may not want to do that, so I'm going to go to Preferences and show you that under the Connection tab, there is something called Use Another Connection if already open. By selecting that setting in Xgate, what happens is when you do a data connection in Xgate, Xgate will see if there's an open internet connection before it'll try to dial your satellite phone. And so with this setting, once I hit the Start button, what will happen is Xgate will do my session over the Wi-Fi extender. XWeb, if I were to push the XWeb button, would bring up a browser and allow me to browse the internet with compression over the Wi-Fi extender. So this gives you the ability to use your Wi-Fi satellite tools over your narrowband Wi-Fi connection, or your connection with high contention, to advantage to you in the case of crowded Wi-Fis. Now, you may want to do things like sync up your iTunes, or download or watch a video, or do something that requires you to have access to the internet. To do that, you need to disable the firewall. So by pushing the Disable Firewall button, you have now disabled the firewall. At that point, your computer now has full access to the internet, and you can open up a browser. You can go to Google. Oh, sorry, I need to spell that correctly. Google.com. Or go to any other web browser using your standard web tools. The internet is totally on. Now, for users that are using broadband devices, you may want to switch over to your broadband device when you leave the Marina Wi-Fi, and you don't want the firewall to be off when you do this, of course, because that will drive bandwidth through your satellite. So you'll notice that when I disable the Wi-Fi extender, the firewall is already by default disabled and turned back on. So that protects you when using your broadband device. If your broadband device is off and you turn it on, what will happen is the optimizer will automatically detect it and switch the firewall on for you. Now, it'll also change the state so that traffic will go through your broadband device. Finally, if you reboot the Wi-Fi extender, it'll go ahead and set the default to browse through the broadband device or your satellite device with the Wi-Fi disabled. So all very easy to do. You know, it's 3 steps right there on the homepage of the Optimizer, and I find that you will have no problems using this particular device to your great advantage. So thanks for spending time with us. I know that this will be a great product for you. Please look for it on our website, and give our salespeople a call if should you have any questions regarding pricing, installation, and options for the Optimizer. Until next time, this is Lewis at Global Marine Networks wishing you all a great day.